Well, good morning, folks. It is May. Yeah, the year is rushing by. But today we have our friend David Saunders, who is going to speak to us on resilient communities, empowering local initiatives. David.
Ray, thank you. I've cheated a little bit here in that um, I sort of chose a default topic for the talk because this is I'm using a slightly refreshed set of slides, a presentation, which I used with a Quaker course um, running from uh, Woodbrook. And the course is called Resilient Communities. And I was asked to come in and speak on an evening which was about empowering local initiatives. It was um, two, well, three case studies. So this was case studies of local Quaker groups involved in good things, and the other two were uh, local initiatives in Exmouth and Oakhampton. And it was really interesting. And it was a little bit disappointing that it was the way that Woodbrook do it. It wasn't recorded. Um, but so I'm not going to repeat the other two talks here. But it was a very interesting evening, and I came in with thoughts on community energy, which I've done this so many times with this group now. I've given a bunch of talks on a progression that I'm on, as it were. And in the last few weeks, that progression has reached a really interesting point. And indeed, funnily enough, today is quite an interesting point politically for our group. And wow, so there's loads of different ways that I could give this talk. It is about a, and I one version of this talk was given at the March conference of Wessex Community Energy Network, which I love it. There's this wonderful community energy group called Wessex Community Energy Group, and of course Wessex doesn't actually exist. Somebody had the fun idea of calling their network Wessex Community Energy Network, and it's actually one of the best of the community energy groups, certainly in this region. They have great talks, good events, bringing people together. And I was asked to give a case study. I'll show you where that comes in. So I've got a bunch of slides, and in one version of them, I can give the whole slideshow in 10 minutes. And it's after a great deal of work, we are shortly to be in a position to be able to offer people solar energy on their own roofs at no cost and no upfront cost. It's going to come as a result of you paying a lower energy bill. So you'll have an energy bill, and it will show that, oh, I've got solar panels on my roof and they're generating some electricity, and I'm being sold it at a discount. Oh, come on, getting a discount. Oh, I didn't pay for the panels. The community put them in for me. And my paying for the energy at a discount is paying off the cost of the energy bills. And it's a very simple story, but it's actually taken a lot of work to get to that point. There isn't a mechanism for that to happen at the moment. So for the last year or so, I've been and another 3 years before that, and another 10 years before that, I've been working on trying to make this possible. So I'm going to start the slideshow and click through because it will prompt me. Uh,
Popular actions.
oh, something. Oh, fair enough. That was Rosie. Actually, when I say I'm going to start the slideshow, I'm going to see if I can remember how to start the slideshow. You hit um, share, and that's my slideshow. And
Yeah.
I'm going to
Well
click
done. Yeah.
play. That would seem to be it, yeah?
Yes. Yeah.
And just a little bit of nonsense at the beginning. We spin up that it's a Quaker talk. And that's because I've got different versions of it. So uh, this is when I gave the talk for Woodbrook. That was only a couple of weeks ago. And I started off with this little introduction to Bristol. This is the city of this, and this is from a report that was prepared by the council about its energy economy. It's a population of 450,000, and that means the city of Bristol itself, because Greater Bristol, fully urban Bristol, is bigger than that. An economy of 14 billion a year, an energy bill of 870 million a year. And the council are working on how do we make Bristol resilient? How do we make Bristol carbon neutral? How do we make Bristol a renewable energy economy? And like I said, I had a version of this talk which was for Wessex Community Energy's March conference. So I've been through these slides a few times. Oh, and this is today's news. I threw this in, and it is significant. And that is, yesterday we went to vote, and we didn't vote for a mayor for Bristol. A year or so back, we voted not to have another mayor for Bristol, but we still get a regional mayor, and we voted for that yesterday. And the Labour candidate, Helen Godwin, got in. And Helen is she's a good woman. I'm very happy that she's got in. It's interesting that you would think it's going to be between Labour and the Greens, but it was down to that it was between Labour and the Greens and Reform UK. And Aaron Banks came in second place with Reform UK, um, uh, which is well, it's causing a stir. But the bottom line, or rather the top line in this, is that Helen Godwin is going to be our mayor for Wecker for the next 5 years. And that will bring us up to, we're 2025 now, that will bring us up to 2030, which is the date that Bristol City Council and our government have set to be carbon neutral by. So is that an empty promise, or is it going to happen? And I want to bring out in this talk that there is a possibility for it to happen, and that we have a part to play in that, or we collectively have a part to play in that as citizens of the region. So anyway, well done, Helen. Welcome to your office as mayor. And this talk is rather than sort of just jumping and saying, look, we can put solar on everybody's roof, blah, blah, blah. This is about a journey that I've been on and that community has been on for quite some time. In either 2010 or 2011, the government introduced an incentive program around solar energy and wind energy and community energy and household energy called feed-in tariffs. And the idea was that if you put solar energy on your roof, the government would pay you for every unit that you generated. Why would it do that? And it was because it wanted to kickstart a renewable economy. It wanted to encourage people to generate renewable energy. And it knew that most people couldn't afford it at first. It was very expensive. So you got paid rather more than the energy was worth to generate some renewable energy. As I remember, it's about 44 pence a unit. And at the time you paid 16 pence a unit for electricity. So you got 3 times what it was worth to generate electricity. And I jumped in on this learning journey. And this is a picture that I took, obviously of solar panels. And this is on the roof of Hamilton House in Stokes Croft. And it took a whole year to basically to figure it all out. How much do solar panels cost? Where do you get them from? What permission do you have to get? Where do you plug them in? Where are we going to, what that feed-in tariff that the government's introduced, where do you get it and how? How much room for solar is there on Hamilton House Roof? All sorts of questions at the beginning of the year. And well, where are we going to get the money to pay for the solar panels? Because the feed-in tariff came in over 25 years. So it's going to pay off the cost, but you've got to find the money to pay for the solar panels. Eventually, it turned out that we paid for the solar panels with initially we found an investor who liked the idea of what we were doing, believed us when we said that every year he would get money back, which is like getting interest on you. Instead of putting your money in the bank, you put it on a roof. And instead of getting interest from the bank, you were getting a feed-in tariff from the government. But it was as good as guaranteed. And so this is the rather raggedy solar array that you put up. You can see the funny box sitting up in the middle. That's part of the building's air conditioning system. And over the bigger box behind is the top of one of the lift shafts on the roof of Hamilton House. So we put the solar panels in around it, and there's 40 kilowatts of solar panels. And at the time, it was the biggest community-owned solar installation in Bristol. So it was quite an achievement. And we got it that the panels went on the roof the day before the feed-in tariff ended, and we had a crane organized and everything. I haven't got the picture, but it turned out that the day that we were going to lift the panels up onto the roof was the only day that year that there was a hurricane. And so we had this trailer arrive with solar panels on the back, and we had this crane arrive, and these guys sort of on the crane were looking up on the roof and saying, "Oh, not going to be getting the crane up this up today, are we?" And our lovely installers eventually, the panels went in batches up the lift. So that was that. Next year, I was much more interested in the idea of having solar panels for ordinary people. So that was solar panels on a community building. How did I get hold of that roof? Because I knew the owner of it, my mate Martin Connolly. And then straight afterwards, we went to all that year. We were thinking what we really want to do is to see if we can use solar panels to help ordinary people. And we knew that there was a feed-in tariff, and it was a bit artificial, but it nevertheless gave us the chance to go into Lockleys. We chose Lockleys. The government was interested in Lockleys. It had I think it was a program called Big Local or something. It was David Cameron's locality. And we worked with a cooperative of solar installers as a group of some of the installers in Bristol. This is Bristol Area Solar Installer Co-op, putting solar on one of 23 roofs in Lockleys that we put up in the year 2012-13, just as an experiment in can we talk to the community? Would people be interested in having solar energy? We had no idea. How would you engage with them? What are you going to say? How are we going to organize the finance again? This time we had a community share issue. So we did all that. And because we had put solar power on Hamilton House roof, we got to know a reporter at the Post, and he said, "What are you doing? What are you doing next?" So we're going to put solar on roofs in Lockleys. "Oh, I'll get you the front page for that." And so we were on the front page of the Bristol Post, which is great. And we had just a really simple little flyer that and in fact, this is when we made it prettier for the next year. First time round, it was roughly speaking these words in a little community newsletter that was sent round. We invited people to come to an event. They came. We told them what we were doing. We were offering free solar, and well, you know what I'm like. I'm a bit nerdy, and our presentation was quite long. There were loads of slides, and this lovely man who was helping us host this eventually said, so I was there with a German engineer called Mike. He said, David, Mike, shut up. Just give these people three reasons why they should do this. And I said, well, it's it's good for the it's going to save you money, and it's going to create jobs. And then I said, and this really happened. I said, I'm blanking. Uh, can anybody think of another reason? And somebody in the audience said, it's good for the environment. And we went, oh yeah, right, of course, that's why we're doing it. I forgot that. Um, and that became a slide. I had a slide. In the next time round, I got those 3 points, and it became a story that's kept going. So we put solar panel on these roofs in Lockleys, and at the end of it, uh, we sort of and the feed-in tariffs got less and less. You can see from this graph. These four graphs are what we learned during the time. And the first thing we learned was that the cost of solar just was coming down. It was getting cheaper and cheaper. The more solar that was installed, the cheaper it got, which is what the government were looking for. They were looking for a learning effect so that the cost would come down. And at the same time, they were saying, well, we're going to keep cutting the incentive as well. But it came down at about the same rate. So the third graph, the one on the bottom left, was the amount of money that you would get back from feed-in tariffs over 25 or 20 years if you put £1 million worth of solar on roofs. And the answer was in the first year, 2011, you got £3 million back. It was incredibly worthwhile doing it. The government cut the feed-in tariff back, so it became roughly 2 million, which is a reasonable return on your investment. You got your money back and you got interest over the next 20 years. But what was interesting was this one on the bottom right, was because the cost of solar panels was coming down, the value of the electricity that you generate was going up. And after the first couple of years, even the electricity that you generated was worth more than the cost of the panels. So it was worthwhile just from the value of the electricity on its own to install solar panels. And the government said, that's what we're looking for. And around about 2018, they stopped the incentives entirely. So that went away. But this is another graph that I really like. As you can see, it's meant the exponential growth of solar PV, and you can see it's more or less a straight line, but it's a straight line because the scale on the left is logarithmic. Every block is times 10 times the one below. So when it's going up to 1 gigawatt between 1992 and 2000, it grew the same amount between 2000 and 2008, only it didn't. It was times 10. And then between 2008 roughly and 2016, it grew another 10 times again. And everybody was getting their estimates of how fast solar was growing wrong, except this one man, Ramez Naam, who is a chief scientist at Microsoft. And he was saying it's exponential, it's not linear. If you put it on a logarithmic chart, you'll get a straight line. And he did that. And I thought, well, okay, that's great. Let's extend that graph because, that line is obviously going to keep going like that. And when will that energy be as much energy as we're using in the world? And we'd had the Paris Climate Summit and all that. And I looked up two things. One, the page on the growth of photovoltaics, which was this straight line, which I extended. And the other was world total energy use, both in Wikipedia. And I plotted that. And then you see when does the one line hit the other? And you look down and it's 2032. So that's really both interesting and strange, because it wasn't until, when was it? 20 something or other, the Paris Climate Summit, that our government set a goal to be net zero, to be zero emissions by 2050. And I'm looking at this graph here and saying, well, according to me, according to Wikipedia, we are going to be net zero by 2030, not 2050 at all. In 2050, it will have been game over for 20 years. Nobody's saying that at all. And indeed, Bristol, when the Greens a couple of years back said, let's aim to be carbon neutral by 2030, we're not going to be, according to our governments, we're not going to be net zero soon enough. We're going to have too many emissions. And nobody talked about this is a technology curve. This isn't politicians saying we've got to do this and oh, it will be hard. This is just growth that's happening because the technology is getting cheaper. And as Mark Carney, now the Prime Minister of Canada, but at the time he was the chairman of the Bank of England, he was saying, we're going to have to stop taking fossil fuels out of the ground because if we burnt all the fossil fuels, we'll get the world will have its atmosphere clogged with carbon. It will be disastrous. But then he went to Canada and he set up a renewable energy fund. And pretty soon he was saying, all the decisions about renewable energy, they're not being made by governments. They're being made economically. And they're being made economically because you save money when you use renewable energy. Brilliant. So now he's Prime Minister of Canada, and he was promoting all of this way back then. And we were looking at, well, now that there's no feed-in tariff, is there a way that we can run a project just on the value of the energy? And we got a small grant. I was having a conversation with a community energy group called Low Carbon Gordano, and we got talking with our friends in Lockleys, and we all said, let's do a project. And we applied to a fund called Next Generation Community Energy Program for some money to work out on a project. And that was Low Carbon Gordano. It was Lockleys Neighbourhood Trust. And we had, again, a very, very simple plan. We wanted to put a megawatt of solar on 300 roofs in Lockleys. We wanted to have a solar farm, but on people's roofs, not on a field. And we wanted to share the energy between the houses that the solar was on. And we started working on it. We got a £100,000 grant, and we found ourselves working with a really wonderful collection of organizations to do this. This was Power to Change, a community, a group that wanted to create community co-ops, make communities more self-sufficient. And they got government funding for this big program called Power to Change. And as part of it, they had this next generation energy. And we applied for a grant and we got one. And they had different people helping us, the Centre for Sustainable Energy, Low Carbon Hub in Oxford, consultants called Everrose and CAG Consultants. We had just this wonderful group of people helping these 10 projects that had been assembled. And we got on with it, and it was coming along ever so well. And in particular, the most important thing then was what was new was we were going to have to charge people for the electricity rather than we weren't just, you're going to get solar off your roof. It's like free. Or we're going to collect the feed-in tariff. Well, we'll keep that to pay for it. You get the free energy. We're going to say, no, you're going to get energy off your roof. You're going to get it at a discount. And your energy company is going to collect it from you and give it to us. Lovely, right? So fantastic. Ready to go. Off we go. And COVID. Bang. Project stopped dead in its tracks. We didn't know how long COVID was going to go on, but our grant funding was supposed to be spent within a year or a year and a half. And it turned out that COVID kept going for quite some time. But worse than that, we were working, a critical partner was Bristol Energy Company, and Bristol City Council sold off Bristol Energy. End of project. I'm going to speed up a little bit because after the end of that, um, I kept looking to see when it would be possible to restart this project in some shape or form. And I was talking to uh, Labour's environmental group, which is called SERA, Socialist Environmental Resource Association, and I was writing little research papers for them. And every so often, I'd give a Quaker talk. So here we are on another one, and here are some of my earlier Quaker talks in this kind of series, which is about what we was learning on the way. And eventually, we came up to the point where I met up with this lady, Iris Partridge, and she had an idea that we could help our communities become more resilient by this whole idea of putting solar on people's roofs. And we met in about February 2 years ago, started talking about it. And by the end of the year, we were applying for grants, and one of which was from Centrica, energy company, and it was in a program called Energy for Tomorrow. So this is the story within the story. What you're seeing now is the presentation that Iris and I made to the directors of Centrica, this energy company, right? So that's the starter slide. And this was November 19th, 2024. So where are we now? Well, it's not November. Right. So this was partway through the year. We'd already got some grant funding by then. And what we were saying was, here's Bristol. The darker areas are the areas of fuel poverty and social deprivation. Bristol's got a rich core and it's poor around the edges. We want to help the people with some social problems. There's a climate crisis, there's a crisis of resilience, and at the moment, we're going to have an unfair transition to whatever we're going to do to be more resilient. There's a lot of people haven't got any money to buy themselves out of a crisis. So we want to help them. We decided to do something, and we set up this project called Resilience Network and its solar project, which we called Bristol Solar Challenge. And we were looking at two sort of left brain and right brain of it. On the one side, we've got a climate crisis. On the other side, there's a techie revolution happening of renewable energy, right? And somehow they fit together. The climate crisis is because of global warming, is because of fossil fuel emissions. The technical revolution is about bringing in renewable energy and stopping the fossil fuel emissions. So we said that was that. We said, here's what we want to do. We want to put very quickly, we only had 10 minutes to talk to them, and I've already used up way more than that. Very quickly, we said we want to create a just transition. We want to give people cheaper energy without upfront cost, like I said at the beginning, starting with 100 homes as a test in 2025. That's this year. And our logo for Resilience Network is a bit of a puzzle because we're trying to join up the puzzle pieces. The problem for the climate, we want to bring together members who are community centers, and we want to bring in partners who are the people with the technical knowledge of how you could put solar on roofs. So not people in their households don't know how to do that, may not be able to do it. We want to create a community group to do this. We set up a information news, and we set up this project. And we thought, how are we going to run this? Well, we're going to apply for some funding. And we applied to two different community energy funds, and we got grants of £45,000 last year to study the feasibility of this project. And we immediately started working. Well, the first thing we did was we put together a lovely website to tell people about our project. And then we started working with around the different problems there are in setting up a community group, the legislation that allows you to have a group, the agreement that you would have with householders and with an energy company, how the numbers would stack up, how we're going to share the energy, how we work with the grid, how we work with installers. So we used money from our grant to pay different groups to work with them. Those are four of the groups in Bristol who got some of our grant money to work with us during that year. And we had a great technical consulting company called Zenergy, which is a solar company based in Brighouse, who we knew because one of their directors was an old chum of mine. But they had um, brilliant knowledge about how to use solar energy and batteries together to make the batteries and solar energy work really well together. They'd had an earlier company called Energy. No, I guess I'm going to miss it. Share something like Shared Energy. That's not right. It'll pop into my head. They had an earlier company that morphed into Zenergy, and they were working on all sorts of things in this, and they became our friends. And they were suggesting, well, if you can put solar on ordinary people's roofs, that's something we can't do. We have to find people who can afford to pay. If you think you can get the community to put in funding, we'll help you do a bigger program. That's quite exciting. So we did all this research last year. We've ended up holding a technical meeting. We brought everybody together, said, we think we've got it figured out. This is what we can do. And this is where we are. This is the meeting where we're talking about our feasibility study. We want more funding to plan the business. And then we want to put solar on 100 homes as a demonstration, right? And spread across Bristol in five blocks of pairs of 10 homes, trying out two different ways of doing it. We want to reduce people's energy bills. We want to show people that communities can be involved in creating this just transition. And we want to help do retrofits on homes. Brilliant. All of this. And there's room for a lot of this in Bristol. This was from Bristol's research on climate change, and they're saying there's room for solar on 96,000 homes in Bristol. There's room for 537 megawatts of solar. It's a lot of solar, 600 million quid's worth of solar on our roofs. It would make a big contribution to reducing the emissions for the city. And they were saying, Centrica was saying, tell us what your idea is and how we can help. And we said, well, they had an outfit called Centrica Business Solutions. And we said, we want you to set up Centrica Community Solutions to help communities. And we want you to help us organize the billing. And we want you to help us do the business planning and everything, marketing support. There's all sorts of things that an energy company could do. And we got to speak to 5 directors of Centrica with different responsibilities just for 10 minutes. And then they asked questions for 10 minutes. And they had a set of criteria, what they were looking for us, that we would oh, excuse me. Don't know who, somebody I don't know is calling me, and I've sent them a message. Can I call you later? So they were going to use these criteria to assess us. And at the end of it, they said, no, this is great. It's a well-developed plan. It's scalable. It's ambitious. It's a good concept. It's very complex. It's a commercial opportunity. We don't think it's right for our grant program. We think it needs a different direction. We think it needs more support. We want to put you with our Energized Futures team, which is a group working in Europe with 24 million customers. I went, whoa. So a different message this time. Same person, different message. So we came away from that, and we are talking with them about how you organize local microgrids. And at the end of the year, in November, we held a resilience gathering. We brought together, oh, no, this was March, not so long ago now. We brought together community groups and said, we are going to be able to run this project and we're going to be able to show people this new model of free solar, no upfront cost, it's low risk. Your energy bill is going to be 30% less. What do you think? And we started producing little technical grams. What it's going to be like when as we switch from people being curious about what we're doing to having solar on the roof and getting a lower energy bill. What does the story look like? So we're planning now, but we're also finding other people who are interested. We've got a group in Lancashire. It says Swillycan, Skelmersdale. Swillycan is Southwest Lancashire Independent Community Advice Network. And we had an inquiry from them, and they said, in effect, they said, we want to do a project like yours. So they sent out an email to community energy groups saying, can anybody help? We want to do this, that, and the other. And we started talking to them. And they've got £100,000 grant, part of which is to work with us, and part of which is to work with the wind turbine project in Avonmouth, which is great.
Yeah.
We're working with Energy Local, who have energy clubs. You join an local energy club, and they work with a renewable energy generator. Their first one was a hydro scheme, but this is going to be us with solar on our own roofs. So they're the people who are going to help us set up the billing. And we're working with Zenergy, who they've now got a solution that works for housing associations. And we may actually work with them in Lancashire, where we'll see that. But they've got this idea: solar on the roof, storage, and they do two different types of heating. One is called low frequency infrared, which is little panels in the ceiling. You may not, well, the nearest place that we've got to that is they've got something like that at the Quaker Meeting House in Redland. They've got panels suspended off the ceiling. Here, they're talking about a ceiling paper. So you look up, you don't see anything, but you feel warmth coming from your ceiling. Low frequency infrared. And we're working with Centrica's Energized Futures team and their European Renewable Energy Communities project. So we've got all sorts of things coming together for us. With Centrica, we're working with Ofgem now, the energy regulator, around their strategic innovations. So it's all coming alive in different ways. And there is the grid have got a program called P441 working with Ofgem, and it's basically around setting up local microgrids, so connecting up houses and businesses, and in our case, cars and batteries. That's what we want to do in an area. We want to have quite a complicated arrangement that works out, creating the cheapest energy for everyone through having shared storage and shared solar on our roofs. And we've started working with Swillycan. That's Skelmersdale, and the houses in red there are the ones we want to help. They're the houses with least money. So I haven't been up there yet, but I'm planning to go up there in the next week or so to kick this project off. Yeah, what have we got? We've got some funding. We're working on a wind turbine, some solar farms, and 300 warm homes. And here's a lovely one. In Hackney, they've got a plan to work with putting solar on the roof of 18 apartment blocks, sharing the energy between 800 people in the apartments. They don't get much solar each, but they get a lower energy bill. And again, this is proof, our concept, how you organize it to work with the energy company, to organize the billing was complicated. But now we've got three different groups: Energy Local and our friends at Zenergy, and now Hackney, who are all doing this in different ways. So this year we've got to figure out which way we're going to actually use, but we're going to be able to go ahead with a scheme. And we think we've proved that the project's viable. At the beginning of last year, we knew it was possible. We didn't know how we're going to do it. At this time, this year, we've got 2 or 3 ways we can do it. And oh, this is funny. This is about how much it's going to cost. Uh, Balkonkraftwerke. What's that? It's a balcony energy power station. And you can see that balcony there has got 4 solar panels on it, right? In Germany, 700,000 homes have got solar panels on their balconies. That's more solar energy on balconies alone than the sum total of all the renewable energy put up in the United Kingdom by all the community energy groups. So this is the thing. Things are it's sort of like leapfrogging. Somewhere some craze comes up and suddenly there's a huge amount of solar. And where do you get these panels from? Well, you go to Aldi and you buy 4 solar panels and a battery and an inverter and a wire, and you clip the panels onto your balcony and you connect them to the inverter and the battery, and you just plug it into the mains. You don't have to have an installer come and do it. And you're getting 1.78 kilowatts of solar for 12,049 euros, which is £600 a kilowatt. We're having to pay, the best price we've got so far is about £1,200 a kilowatt. In Germany, it's half the price. And so this is the point, that things are happening around the world to make this kind of project become more and more possible. And our countryside charity says there's room for 50 gigawatts of solar on the roofs in the country. And 50 gigawatts is a significant number. If you look on the app that I've got about grid power, we never use, the United Kingdom doesn't generate that much energy ever. We don't use 50 gigawatts. On a day when we're using a lot of energy, it's around 40 gigawatts. So our roofs at midday on a sunny day can generate more energy than the whole country uses electricity. That's amazing. So there is the real possibility of a new energy system. I'm not going to go into that. This basically says this could make a big contribution to reducing Bristol's emissions. This is about how we make a just transition. Everything we want to do is about helping individuals make changes by making big changes that make it easy for them to act. We're making a big change, introducing a program where it's easy for people to say, oh, I'd love to have some free solar on my roof and a cheaper energy bill. Why wouldn't people do that? And this is my chum, Dave Borlace, who runs a blog on the internet called Just Have a Think. And his latest report says the biggest thing the world can do to mitigate against climate change is solar panels on roofs. It's the single biggest thing. I've been saying this for years, but now reports are coming out saying if we had solar panel on our roofs, well, look, it's going to generate more energy than we use. So in Australia now, there's a government, the Labour government, are campaigning on the strength of we're going to give away free batteries. Why are they going to give away free batteries? Because people have bought solar all over the country and they're generating all the energy they need during the day and they haven't got electricity from their roof at night. And so the government are having to provide nighttime electricity through the electricity grid. They're not having to provide daytime electricity because they've nearly got enough solar. So the government is saying, oh, for pity's sake, we'll give you batteries, because if we give you batteries, you can store up your solar energy and then we won't need the grid. So we'll save money. So the national election campaign is being fought on the strength of sharing energy across the country. And we're getting cheaper and cheaper electric cars. At the moment, you're saying 35,000 for an electric car. That seems a bit expensive, doesn't it? Not sure I can afford that. And the Chinese are saying, no, $13,000. What's that? Oh, 10 grand. So that's there you go. You can get a full-size electric car, a lovely looking electric car for 10,000 quid, cheaper than a petrol car. So that's a few. Oh, look, it's got a battery in it. It's got a battery in it. I can use that to power me home. I'll use it two ways. So that's our solar future. Our solar. This is a Chinese guy. He is the chief executive of BYD. See, it says up the top left, BYD. Build your dream. But you can't read what he's saying because it's in Chinese. But what he's saying is an electric car. We're making an electric car that will charge as fast as you can fill a car with petrol. How come? Because it's got 1,000 volt electricity system and it adds a mile to its range every second it's plugged into the charger because it's charging a megawatt. Unbelievable. So this is the world that we're stepping into. Free solar and storage, electric vehicles, shared community energy. And in a few years, well, by 2032 or not long afterwards, this will be commonplace in 5 years' time, and we'll be getting most of our energy from solar energy. Isn't that brilliant? Patsy.
When can I get some free solar panels onto my roof and benefit from this wonderful idea?
Yeah, well, what you've unfortunately just experienced is my talk about what we're doing. So we are hoping to have the first thing is, later this year, if you move to Skelmersdale, um, because it may be that we do this first in Skelmersdale, but the idea is as soon as we have done this in some test homes, working with community centres, we ought to be able to scale this up as fast as we can scurry, basically, because every time you put solar on a roof, it will generate a lower energy bill for you, but nevertheless, the money that you're paying will be enough to pay off an investor. And that investor is going to be the government. This government has got a plan to get the country to carbon neutral by 2030. And we intend to, tell them about it and get them to help us create this scheme. So,
I hate to be a man uh, of that type of event, but I hear that quote in the back of my mind, which says, "Jam tomorrow."
Yeah, absolutely. Ray, I gave up a job in London in 1979 because I had been reading Jam Tomorrow books about the internet. You're going to be able to buy a little thing and you're going to be able to communicate anywhere in the world and you're going to be able to access all the world's information. And it was quite possible even then because Moore's law already existed. In fact, it was created by a great English mathematician. There's a law that says laws are never named for the person who invented it. And Moore's law should be called Turing's law because Alan Turing predicted the rate of growth of technology. And you could quite clearly draw this curve and see when computers would be powerful enough. And I went to the United States in 1979. And 10 years later, after working in Silicon Valley, I came back with a Macintosh. It hadn't been invented. It didn't exist when I went over there. It was launched in 1984, 5 years later. So, Ray, absolutely, absolutely, Ray, jam tomorrow. And I can tell you exactly which day of the week it will be, because
Angela,
technology curves can be plotted. And you can say, this is, and that's why I'm working on this project, to make it happen. Yeah, Angela.
My brother put solar panels on his house in Peasmarsh, East Kent, many years ago.
Lovely.
And at the time, he said to me, Angela, as with everything, cars, there's the equivalent of a man with a van that'll take your money, da da. You need to make sure you know what you're buying. There are solar panels that are, will do the business, and there's rubbish. So, what would be your recommendations about which solar panel company to use, which solar panels? Because I think, my brother's a computer programmer. He knows what he's talking about. And he actually told me what solar panels he chose, a small company in Kent.
Well, I would recommend I would recommend that you go and watch a talk given by somebody, like me, about what communities can do so that this is done in a fair and proper and intelligent way. What we have done is we have brought together an expert group to work with the best people in the community. And one of the things that you need to do in a community, my sister bought solar panels from a very, very reputable, very expert solar panel company. And when she had a problem with them, 2 years later, they'd gone out of business. So it didn't matter that they were expert at all or not. But if you had got solar panels by going to your local community center and joining a co-op that you were a member of, and that co-op had brought the best people in the area to put the solar on the roofs. And if you have a problem, you go down to the community centre and say, "Oh, I've got a problem." And they say, "Oh, have you, my love? Have a cup of tea, sit over there. We'll get Jimmy to come over and have a chat with you. What is your problem?" So the point is you handle it properly. One way of handling it properly is that Bristol City Council already held a citizens' assembly, bringing together a group of citizens and giving them expert advice about the energy transition so that they could decide intelligently what would be the best way to manage the energy transition. And they produced a lovely report, which the council put on the shelf as a consultative document, and which we took off the shelf and said, right, here's the recommendations from the Citizens' Assembly. We'll implement that as part of the just transition. So, yes, there's Ray could have said jam tomorrow. He could have said one born every minute. You could make 100 objections, but the answer is that you come together as a community and you do things intelligently. Why not? Yes, there's one born every minute, and you could easily be a sucker on renewable energy, but you're an expert in some field and you know how to look at things. The first event I went to had a bunch of people from Lockleys, most of whom didn't really know anything about community energy. But when Mike and I were talking, people started asking questions, and the people in the room looked at who was asking the questions, knew that they were intelligent people, looked at the answers that were giving, and started to form opinions amongst themselves about whether they were being given balderdash or not. And, we put solar on roofs. And once we'd started doing that, people were saying, "Oh, I got solar on my roof and my energy bill's gone down already." More people came to our next meeting, you can be sure. So, yes, there's all sorts of, exactly that curve that I showed, that straight line. It's a curve on a logarithm. It's called a learning curve. And, originally, there aren't many people who know stuff, but eventually there comes a time when something becomes common. There was a time when people said, "You'll never, how are people ever going to learn how to use computers?" And now you have newspapers full of when are people ever going to stop using the computers and start talking to each other? We've gone from one extreme to the other in less than a generation. And we're about to be able to do the same thing with community energy. It won't take long. There was a uh, the American telephone company AT&T asked asked McKinsey consultants whether smartphones was a real thing or whether it's going to be a fad. And McKinsey said, "Oh, it's just a fad. never going to be a big market thing. Never be more than 40% of the market. Most. It's not really a thing. So AT&T didn't build a smartphone. They felt quite silly about that quite soon afterwards.
Yeah.
So technology. If technology is any good, it people start to use it. People find a use for it. And there's always somebody who wants to go and make it happen. And having seen the computer technology curve, I knew that this was going to happen with renewable energy, and I thought I could help make this happen a bit quicker.
I just hope. I mean, I'm 82 shortly, and well, not shortly. I'm in my 82nd year, and my gas and electricity bill is £120 a month. I think I've got that right.
Yeah.
And it's grinding me into the ground.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, I'm not going to see this miracle in my lifetime.
I can take you through the numbers, Patsy. It turns out, so your energy bill, which has doubled in the last few years,
It has, yeah.
um, is some of your energy is coming from solar farms and wind turbines, which produce the world's cheapest energy.
Mm.
So how come you're paying so much for it? And the answer is you are being ripped off.
Mm.
That's what's happening. You're being ripped off by the energy industry, who took one look at Putin invading Russia and, said, "Oh, price instability, opportunity to charge more." So there's a market mechanism that where the government electricity company said, we need to buy in enough electricity for everybody, and they have a bidding system, and they ask everybody to put in, as it were, sealed bids. And then until they've got enough bids, and then they pay everybody the same price that they're paying for the most expensive electricity, not the price they're paying for the least expensive electricity. And it's corrupt.
Is there any way out of this?
Yes, generate our own electricity ourselves, right?
No, I know. I mean, I'll rephrase that. How soon can I personally do something about it?
Look,
Is
if
it
you no, if you
popping around?
Patsy, if you've got personal money, you could put solar on your roof right away, and you could do the arithmetic. I can take you through the arithmetic. I've got the arithmetic. It turns out that uh, at the moment you're paying nearly 30 pence a unit for your electricity, right? And if the energy companies had anything to do with it, they would be charging you that for the next 30 years, forever. We'll charge people as much as possible for as long as we can. So you would be paying 30 pence a unit for electricity. So if you had 5 kilowatts of solar on your roof, you would make 5,000 roughly units of electricity a year that you would normally be paying 30 pence a unit for. So that's 5,000 times 30. So that's £150 a year for the solar panel. And you could buy those solar panels for 600 quid in Germany. So you would have paid for them in 4 years, and then you would pay for them 8 more times over the next 30 years. Or you could do all this through a community group, and you could start paying half price for your solar, and then the panels could be being paid over the next few years. So that's all. We could hold evening classes about this, which would explain solar arithmetic to you and explain in depth how you were ripped off by the current energy system. But you are, the newspapers say, Shell declare windfall profits and this, that, and the other. All of those things are happening. People are paying incredible prices for fuel that goes into power stations, and you're paying a high retail price. And we're saying, let's start making as much of the energy as we can ourselves inside our local substation area. will make the electricity, will sell it to us at a price that we agree based on how cheaply we can make it. So and so that comes back to Ray's question of jam tomorrow and other questions about whether people are going to do this in a fair way or not. Well, the answer is if you don't want jam tomorrow, you can be paying caviar every day, paying as if for caviar every day, and only getting Marmite. You know,
And
we end up paying a premium price because instead of learning, we just continue to be ripped off and we don't get wise. The
then, David, I would ask the question to you:
Hmm.
uh, Do you know of a community group or groups that Angela and Patsy could join?
Yes, the one I'm forming. It's the first of its type.
Right.
Right.
There you go.
That's why you're hearing about it and you haven't heard about it before because it doesn't exist. Somebody has to think of it and make it happen.
Okay.
So I went to America because I had read people say we can make a tablet computer with a touch screen. We're going to be able to do that. It will be small, it will be cheap. And I thought, I want me one of them. Nobody's making it right now. I knew nobody was making it right now because I was in the industry. Right, I'm going to America. I'm going to find out who is making it. I'm going to be part of it. That's the
Yeah.
point. There are nerds who are saying, you're saying, does this exist already? And I say, of course it doesn't. You know,
But we
my
could
job
make
is
a
to
start.
help it.
So we could make a start.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Put
I
it
mean,
into
we
Quaker Energy.
yeah, we have had real trouble. If enough people say, well, I haven't seen it, I don't believe it's going to happen, I don't think it's going to be possible. If enough people say it isn't going to be possible, we won't get rooms full of people who are interested. We won't get grants to say, that sounds like a good idea, we should have this. This is why I'm really, really excited by the election result that we just had, because I've already sat with the person who is, as of today, the mayor of Wecker and talked her through this program and said, what you are doing with renewable energy at the moment is ambitious and exciting, but it's not what we actually need. It's not the best thing that's possible. And we've talked through what we could be doing. So it needs people to come together and say, not, well, I've heard I've heard it all before. You'll never do it. Well, there's a Chinese saying, a man who says it can't be done should get out of the way of the person who's doing it.
I I believe myself to be the devil's advocate, David, but you know that I think you know that I'm a great supporter of all these type of things which are going on, which will give clean and cheaper energy for everybody. And I think it's a wonderful idea.
Devil's
More
already,
power to your elbow, my friend.
the devil has got quite enough people working for him already. I would give up your devil and become an angel's ally and do something useful.
Yeah, that sounds helpful.
So there you go.
Okay.
So this will, I mean, the time we're at right now is we a year ago. I've been talking with this group a lot. We've got a whole string of talks, and at the beginning it was this is a possibility. Now we've done a feasibility study. We've done the arithmetic. I've even taken you through the numbers. You know that you can see that it's possible if you buy panels from Aldi, they would be paid for within 2 years by the electricity you got from your roof. And we're saying, well, no, don't do that. Let's pay for it over, say, 8 years and have half price electricity straight away. And not pay for it immediately. Because if you pay for it all as fast as you can, then your electricity won't be cheaper right now and you won't be feeling a benefit. So spread the payments over a few years, get you cheaper electricity, and let's all surf into the future. Patsy, I really, really hear you when you say how much you're paying for energy, and it's painful to be paying too much, and it's painful that people say, I can't afford to heat my home, and I'm cold in the winter, and it's horrible. And we want to make, first of all, electricity cheaper, and then on the back of that, we want to bring in these, nice heating systems that run on electricity and so on.
Yeah.
There you go. Ray, I've gone way over.
There we go.
Do a joker on me, stop me.
Somebody stop me. Yeah, one of my favorite films. Mask, which is the quote along those lines. But there you go. Next week, we have the clerk of area meeting coming to chat with me.
Oh, lovely.
Which
is there anything? Carry on.
Huh?
I was just going to say, not everybody has spoken. I wonder if there are any really urgent questions that I could stick around, or we can. But
okay.
I don't want to leave anybody unsatisfied. So if Gordon or Rosie has anything to ask, we could stick around for a moment or two, or we could head out and enjoy the day. Thank you very much, everybody.
It's sunny out there, folks.
Yeah, it's a lovely day.
Go enjoy the day.
Okay. And anybody want to stay? Okay. Anybody wanted to stay can, that's all. We'll stay tuned in until everybody except David has gone.
I've gone.
Is that all right?
Off your chairs. Are you all right, Gordon? Are you okay, Rosie?
Yeah, I mean, it's so exciting to hear this kind of community initiative. I think my heart goes out to Patsy and everyone else who's been overcharged.
Yeah.
But I was thinking of when you said the people bought panels for the balconies in Germany. And so I assume that means that all the energy generated goes directly, they benefit directly, so they don't have to give any of it to the grid.
Yeah, before anything else, electricity will be so the electricity is going into the battery, right? So
yes.
even if you're not at home during the day, it's going into the battery, and the battery is organized so that as soon as you start using electricity, you will get electricity from the battery. So preferentially, you will be using your solar energy even at night, and it's only a full kit is only 1.8 kilowatts, so it's not providing all the electricity your house would use. But it's possible that you could be generating more energy, so that you're not using anything. I'm trying to figure out what it would look like, but it is possible that some electricity would go out into the grid, and because you haven't got an arrangement with your energy company, naturally that will just kind of leak out into the grid. You haven't got an arrangement where you're getting paid for export. We want ours to be arranged so that you get paid for export. We actually want to arrange it where we put more solar on your roof than you use electricity, so that you've got an abundance of solar, and some goes into the grid and we get a payment for export as well. So all that's possible. But in Germany, if you just buy a kit at Aldi and plug it in, you haven't done a deal with the energy company. You haven't even told them that you're doing it. You're just, sneaking it onto your balcony and plugging it into the mains. And hey,
I love that one. I love that idea.
That's really brilliant. At the moment, it's illegal in this country. So people are saying, well, where's my Aldi?
Well, yeah.
You can't do it yet. We got a balcony. Yeah. No, I'll just stick it on the wall. I'll just stick them outside. Right.
Well, keep going, David. It's very exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Anarchy in the UK, renewables. Okay.
Thank you, and cheerio for now.
Cheers.
Okay. Bye, Rosie.
Bye-bye.